Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, humans of all spectator sports and persuasions and locations and occupations, you are in for a great treat today. It is 1 p.m. in the afternoon here in Sydney, Australia. It is whatever time it is for you, top of the hour in most places, but not all places, because some places, believe it or not, actually change their time on the 30 minutes, such as Adelaide in South Australia. Just in case it was a quiz, now you know. I am now looking for Shawn's introduction, and here we go. Today, you are going to be hearing from Shawn Mahshie. She is known as the CEO of Thrive This Time and the developer of the No Matter What Way, a proactive paradigm of personal and global peace. Say that 3 times fast. She spent 20 years researching the symmetry in relationships, teaching simple models that harvest whatever upsets you to turn around businesses, marriages, and lives. Today, it's all about self-solidarity, a fearless win-win way to do business. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's hear it for Ms. Shawn Mahshie. Woohoo! Hey, Shawn.
Hey, Ken, thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here, and I love your mission with this World Love Week. Really honored to be part of it. So, well, you and I are in this whole business thing together, and whether you're in business or it's just a passion that you love or the way you run your life, I'm just wondering how many of you do the thing that I used to do so much, which was go into what I call regret hell. So regret hell is where you said or did or sent an email or did something that you beat yourself up for. And I'm just wondering, anybody out there have that propensity to go into self-criticism, regret, guilt, self-doubt? And what I learned about that is that also brings people into a lot of indecision, because it turns out it's not necessarily the fear of the outcomes that we're so worried about. It's fear that we will beat ourselves up for the outcome. If you're a person who tends to turn on yourself the minute somebody seems to be angry or disappointed with you, or whatever happens, the outcome didn't go the way you planned, and you immediately start rethinking how you could have done it differently. So there's this one thought behind all emotional pain in some ways, and that thought is something to the effect of, I need this to be different than it is. So in general, any kind of emotional pain comes from that thought. I need you to be different than you are. I need you to treat me different than you are. I need to have more money in my bank account. And when we turn it on ourselves, it's one of the most painful things ever. And this is it's like an epidemic among entrepreneurs. I mean, I would say in general, there are a lot of people out there who actually believe that beating yourself up is a good thing. And that comes from a childhood moment when in some ways something happened that caused us to believe there was something wrong with us. And so to make it okay for the caretaker and get what we needed, we thought, well, I need to do better. I need to make myself different. And so the way to do that and to maintain control is, well, if I just beat myself up hard enough, it'll fix everything. So this kind of thought patterning that destroys us in many ways, destroys our confidence in business and so many aspects of people's health, even when they turn on themselves. It's tenacious because it goes back to survival, those times when we really did depend on someone else and we thought we had to fix ourselves to get a need met. So let's just go into this. There's a lot of talk about mindset in business, and it really is everything. One of my main first business coaches would say 98% of your success in business is mindset. And he was sending everybody to me and saying, we know what to do with this. And one of the things I have learned, in part from becoming certified in the work of Byron Katie, I'm not sure if you've heard of that, but it's a simple way of questioning your thinking with 4 questions, and then you turn it around. And I found that it created a paradigm shift for me. So what I teach about really is that shift, that whatever you feel is being done to you, that you're doing it to yourself and others. So for example, how this works in business is this, what I call the symmetry principle, is you actually just get to follow the thread of whatever is triggering you, and that will show you the very next piece of self-evolution you need to be a success in your business. Since it is an inner game, it is mindset. So much of that is, yes, enjoy your evolution, and then also embrace its edge. And I didn't know how to do that. My life before looked really good on the outside. I had written a book that was published in a lot of languages. I was traveling internationally speaking about it. I had this great career, marriage, a baby, a waterfront home. Everything looked good on the outside. And yet I was just like a puppet of other people's reactions and constantly second guessing and turning on myself. So if you've had that experience, for me, I just, it was hell. I call it regret hell. And I thought I would never really overcome it. And even when I got the work was a thread to that. But there's another piece that for me was when I turned on myself. And I want to share that with those of you who are out there, because I always say entrepreneurship is like the grad school of spiritual development, because it'll show you whatever's left. You put your most precious gifts out there for the world, and and basically are saying, you need to like me enough to pay me for what I do. It'll just trigger all those little wounds in there. But I was lucky that it was a business event that made me realize and made me come up with this wheel of self-love. It's just 3 simple steps, and I'm going to walk you through it so that the next time you know, do something, even saying something to a client or making a decision you feel is going to cost you a lot of money, or in my case, it was just hitting send on a big email broadcast. It was fairly early in my business career, and I was kind of celebrating completing this launch, and I settled back in the bathtub to enjoy, and all of a sudden my mind went, oh no. And it just was, you know, it listed all the things I did wrong. The subject line was too markety. Why didn't you wait and send it out in the morning? They're all going to unsubscribe. And it was just, it just sort of like stabbed me in the stomach kind of thing. My mind was so good at that. But for some reason in that moment, I didn't lay awake worrying about it. I didn't beat myself up for a long time. And so I started analyzing, what had I done? And I spent a year writing about it, the antidote to regret hell, since I was queen of regret hell. And it eventually evolved into this wheel of self-love, which has been downloaded by tens of thousands of people around the world on Facebook. And I just want to walk you through these 3 simple steps real quickly. Let me share that with you now. So, all right. So once I got in that place, it was like I was on a hamster wheel. There was no way out, because I was the one who wasn't forgiving myself, and I couldn't see it any other way. There was no way out of it. It was just this wheel of regret and anxiety, and that caused self-doubt, and the self-doubt caused indecision. And yet I did manage to stumble onto these 3 simple steps where you actually use that as a path to peace. So, and I'm calling it the Wheel of Self-Love. This is going to be a free download that you'll get later. It's an 8-page PDF. This is just the 1-page cheat sheet there. So I'll just walk you through it. And I want you first, if you can, to find a situation. Sometimes it's hard when you're in it, you know you're in it, because it really is hell. It's hard to get out of, but you can come back to this later. But if you have a situation, you know, it can be in 2 minutes ago or 10 years ago, that the antidote to regret is really to reconnect to your own innocence. So it turns out you're the hero that you've been waiting for all this time. And so the piece I didn't have was the understanding that I wasn't really creating. Well, there were 2 pieces. One is that all emotional pain in some ways boils down to our thoughts. And then especially when you have that one thought, I need this to be different than it is. And then when you put it on past tense, it should have been different than it was. So should have was just, the bane of my existence. My mind was, oh, should have done that. Should have said that. Why didn't I? And so when you apply that one thought, I need it to be different than it is to the past. It should have been different. And so what I needed to do though is to realize that I actually wasn't creating the thinking that was driving the bus. There's a lot of out there on the spiritual party line about how we create our thoughts. But if you really start to observe, you'll see that they just pop into your head. You don't say, I think I'll think this right now. I think I'll say this or write this. And especially when we're reacting to something, it just is like, there's the stimulus, here's the programming that gets triggered. The neural networks go down their same old pathway. And once you're believing something, that's your only mindset. I mean, that's your only view of the world. So you couldn't have done it any differently. So what you do here is ask yourself, you go back to that moment. Who were you in that moment when you did that thing? So in the bathtub, I thought to myself, what was I thinking when I sent the email? And I remembered all of the things that were going on and what I was believing. So return to the moment you regret. This is step one. Ask yourself, what was I thinking? Who was I in that moment? What were my fears? What were my insecurities? Whose thinking was I believing? What were my, um, you know, just really my mindset about what needed to happen? And then notice that you did not actually choose to believe that thought. It was an unconscious convergence of mental programming. See that once you were believing it, you could not have acted any other way. A lot of people are going around saying, oh, I could have done better, or I should have done. No, you could not have done any better than you did. And this is such a grand, huge life shift. I always call these the symmetry piece, and this wheel of self-love is the shift of a lifetime to really get there is nothing else but that moment. You could not have done any better than you did, given what you were believing. So for me, it was huge to be able to go back and find my own innocence and stand with, by, and for the me that I was in that moment. So you can go all the way back to middle school. You can go back to a horrible fight in your marriage and find what I call the spark of self-love. You discover how you were always acting out of love, even if that was the instinct to protect yourself or to make money, or to, even if you're to get back at someone in the moment when you were believing you were under threat, that was really the only thing you could do. And it was your job. It's actually our sacred privilege to be the one who cares for ourselves. And yet, if your mindset is such that you're under threat, you may lash back. And so you can find your own innocence, and it brings us to a place I call self-solidarity. It's a self-forgiveness. And it doesn't mean you just go willy-nilly through life forgiving yourself and leaving a trail of wreckage, or making bad business decisions, or not really being there to serve your clients. No, this kind of taking responsibility without beating yourself up actually sets you up much better to make amends, to say, hey, you know what? I realized what I was believing, and so I did that thing, and I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do to make that right? But you're not actually seeking forgiveness from them because you've already forgiven yourself. So it actually sets you up to be in a better place to make amends, to take full self-responsibility. And it's amazing to be able to just go through life and say, okay, let's take a look. I did the best I could. Who was I? And there's nothing like business to bring this stuff out. So it's phenomenal. And now these next two steps are really important too. That so you've forgiven yourself. That was step one. But wait, you're still in fear. What was the thought actually that even sent you into regret to start with? So that's step two, to ask yourself, what am I fearing now? what am I thinking that I thought I was doing fine? I'm just going along, doing what I do. Maybe I wasn't sure, but I took a leap anyway. And then later the thought comes back in and it's coupled with fear. So you have to ask yourself, what am I fearing now? And for me to be able to go into my worst case scenarios, the first question, worst case, and find out that I'll be okay no matter what. So it's like the cessation of fear that you're going to stand with, by, and for yourself. And so you notice the thoughts. This is step 2, that you started believing that plunged you into regret hell. You accept that your mind cannot know that any given outcome will or will not happen. I always had the one, oh, they're going to be mad at me. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. So that kind of calms you a little bit there. Okay, maybe it's not going to happen. But monkey mind, it wants to go all the way to worst case scenario. Our brains are biased towards scanning the environment for what might go wrong. So go ahead. This was my freedom to say, okay, I'm going to go all the way to worst case scenario, and then let's investigate there. So imagine worst case outcomes. Realize that they could actually yield best case outcomes in the end. Think of all those times when things went really badly for you and that ended up taking you to something really good, where you say, wow, thanking my lucky stars that things went so badly there because it took me over to here. And, I think my clients all know there is no such thing as a bad outcome in some ways, or a good outcome. It's just we need to be in that don't know mind place. We're not in charge of what's getting accomplished here. And so when you just are able to turn it over in these ways, trust what shows up, and the next one will show you how what shows up is your great teacher. First of all, the cessation of fear, where you're telling yourself, I need it to be that way. And if it's not that way, then everything's, going down the tubes. Okay, maybe not. And even if it goes down the tubes, you can find the motives underneath too, that we're trying to save you by beating yourself up. This self-criticism thing that we do to ourselves, it's these parts of us that think they're saving or helping us. So it's really important to keep finding that spark of self-love for your inner critic as well. People say, kill the inner critic, but really the inner critic is an innocent part of you that was programmed early on to try to save you by beating you up. So just reassure it that everything's okay. Relax into the truth of not knowing, and let your self-protective instincts, the ones that are beating you up and fearing what's going to happen next, let them get a little more right-sized. Turn the outcomes over to something greater than your monkey mind. So that's step 2, is relax into not knowing. There's safety in the not knowing. And then step 3, if you still need life or others to prove to you that you're okay, like I couldn't forgive myself, or I would feel I would have a list of, yeah, well, only if they're not mad at me, or only if a bunch of people buy my program, or only if, it was always these things on the outside. And that makes us feel really hopeless because we're not in charge of how all of that out there shows up. But all of that is a reflection of the ways that we abandoned ourselves, the ways that we betray ourselves when we use cruel hindsight as a weapon of self-criticism. It's really the lowest form of energy on David Hawkins' scale. Guilt and regret come below fear and anger, because when you turn it on yourself, there's nowhere else for it to go. At least fear and anger move you into action. Regret and self-hatred just leave you stuck. It drains all the energy out of your business. It keeps you from serving the people that you're able to serve. And it just zaps your confidence when you turn on yourselves in that way. So here's the antidote to that, is think about, what do you want from others and from life? Like, what would make you seem to be forgivable? What would let you relax and move on past this and let it go that you did that thing? So ask yourself, what do I want from others in life? And then give it to yourself. So notice the really specific aspects of your survival or happiness that you place outside of yourself, and see how you're the one abandoning yourself. It never was about them. So what you want to do is actually make a list of, okay, I want them to understand why I'm sending out so many emails. I want them to not unsubscribe. I want them to love everything that comes out of my mouth. I want them to love everything I write. I want them to come into my programs so they know how much help there is here. That was what I found that I wanted that night. And so I gave it to myself. I subscribed more in myself. I invested more in myself. I worked on loving everything that came out of my mouth, loving everything I wrote, even if it meant sending out an email with typos. I became the strongest advocate for me in my business, which allows me. The thing about moving into this place of self-solidarity is that self-solidarity is not selfish. When you're taking care of this, when you're self-contained and you're standing with, by, and for yourself, no matter what, then you become able to do that for others. That self-critical voice is actually always being projected onto your husband or your wife or your boss or the person who's checking you out in the grocery store. So when you're able to always find your own innocence, to see that whether it's you or anyone else, the worst that's ever happening is that we're just believing a thought, and that thought is driving our behavior, but we didn't create the thought. And yet the other part of my work with the no matter what way and the symmetry principle helps us undo the thoughts so that they aren't driving the bus anymore. So that's the other thing. When you do identify the thought that was driving you to make those decisions you later regret, we now know what to do with that, to neutralize it, to let the mind see the errors in its own logic. And that calms the emotional charge. So in this case, you make that list and then you find ways to give it to yourself. Forgive yourself. Come home to yourself. Stay by yourself no matter what. If you fear that someone is angry or leaving you, you stop being angry at yourself. You stop leaving you. And they really, others will seem to change too. When you stand for yourself in this way, people love that they're off the hook now for your well-being, and they really pick that up, and everything starts to change, especially in your business, in your confidence. You're able to put yourself out there just the way you are. In fact, Ken pointed out my cup, which is just, you start to be yourself, like everybody else is taken. And the more you become true to yourself and stand by yourself, the more you will attract the people who want what you have. So again, come back and give yourself, let the business and the fears of it guide you. Whatever is happening to you, whatever you want from others in the business, give that to yourself. And it's just the way out. So remember that you're the hero you've been waiting for. And when, entrepreneurship is hard, whether or raising money or fundraising or taking on art or whatever you're doing, that's your passion. It requires that you be your best cheerleader. So anyway, I want to give you as a gift this wheel of self-love, which I'm going to go back over real quickly. Step 1 was reconnect to your own innocence. Step 2 is relax into not knowing. Step 3 is be your own hero. Again, what was I thinking then? What am I fearing now? And what do I want from others or life? And that brings you to that center place, that deep well of self-solidarity. So there you have it. There's the wheel of self-love. And my gift to you is an 8-page PDF that takes you through these steps. And then that's the good parts of it. And then also it gives you an opportunity to get my approximately 30-page Spark of Self-Love ebook, which is about to get published as a much bigger book. May not be available in this way, but this also, you if you download the free PDF, it'll take you to some other stuff where you're able to get a little training video and even direct support from me. But the book is actually not part of that. That's later. But the Wheel of Self-Love, do we have, it's not this link. Do we have the link for that, Ken? It's posted below.
It'll be in the dashboard. So if you guys go to worldloveweek.com/dashboard, it will be there waiting for you. So just head on over there and you grab it with Shawn's compliments.
Yeah, it changed my life. I thought I was a captive of my little regret thing, and it's just been so much fun to catch that and say, you know what, I'm good. I got this.
Yeah, I like the Wheel of Self-Love concept. I think it's great. And I think everyone will benefit from that. So go play. I mean, this is all about putting love back in business, but it doesn't get into business until it starts with you. So it's a fundamental starting point, boys and girls.
It's really fun to be able to rescue yourself from those really dark places that we go to. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is. And I'm looking outside and there's actually a day out there. There's actually a day, and there'll be a day tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that. So the choice is, as long as you choose to live the next day better than you live this day, and fantastic.
Yeah. So it's been really fun for my clients too, because a lot like me were turning themselves into a pretzel and, you know, bending over backwards and putting themselves last, beating themselves up. So I didn't know another way to get out of it. So yeah, there was that beautiful day. There was all that I had to give, but I wasn't always able to get past the thinking that was separating me from that. So it's really great to know how to do that.
It is. Well, you know, it's a skill sometimes too. Truly, it takes some level of skill to get past some of the bad habits that we have, and some of them have been ingrained for so long. This is kind of a cellular level. I'm going to unview your screen so we can see you better.
Yeah.
There we go. I got you. There we go. So yeah. So I mean, to me, bottom line is stepping through the madness and recognizing, as the song in Annie is, the sun will come out tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow there'll be sun. Just thinking about tomorrow clears away the sadness and the sorrow till there's none. So when you're stuck with a day that's
hey,
and lonely,
but
stick up your chin and grin and say,
I have a little bit of a take on it that almost says you've got to go in and be the curious, compassionate caretaker of those littlest parts of you, and not just say, oh, there'll be a better day tomorrow. They actually need your help. So for the people, when you really are stuck, it's so nice to know a way to help yourself out of it.
You are right about that. It's true. But it is, and I'll say though, it is good to know. I mean, when the teen suicide rate is up 8.7 times, which is pretty bad, because kids they don't see hope, they don't see a way out, and so they want to leave this plane.
Self-hatred is just and we really don't know another way, which is why these tools are so life-changing to be able to use.
You have a way of helping people transform themselves in your own practice. And you and I talked months ago. I thought it was completely fascinating what you do and how you do it. And so I will encourage you. And I didn't have access to that, to the Wheel of Fortune that you have there.
Yeah, it is. The Wheel of Self-Love is the wheel of good fortune.
Isn't it? Isn't it?
A fortune in business. Yeah.
And as we celebrate Chinese New Year, it's good to think that. So I want to be clear. Now, by the way, we're about out of time. So I want to say thank you, Shawn. You are an amazing light, and I'll appreciate that. Everybody go ahead to the dashboard, worldloveweek.com/dashboard, pick up the Wheel of Good Fortune, as it were. It's all there for you, and you'll find the rest of Shawn's links and a beautiful photo and more. And with that said, Shawn Mahshie, thank you for being with us. Love you to pieces.
Thank you, Ken, for being such a light to bring all of this for us. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thanks. Have a good one. See you next upcoming more World Love Week to come.
I stand for love. Do you?
Hey, this is Captain Lou, and I stand for love, baby. Do you?
Do you?
Do you? Yes. Do you? Do you? Do you? Do you? Do you?